Hi, my name is Tailinh Agoyo. Welcome to Rise and Thrive, Indigenous Arts, Culture, and Joyful Acts of Resistance. Today, I have a very special guest, Peshawn Bread. Peshawn is a Comanche poet and filmmaker, a 2019 Native Filmmakers Lab Fellow at Sundance. Her short film project, The Daily Life of Mistress Red, is about a Native American dominatrix who whips apologies out of her white male clients. Welcome, Peshawn. Thank you for being on our show.
Thank you, Tailin. It's such an honor to be on your podcast today.
It's so nice to see you. We were just chatting right before the show and saying that we haven't seen each other in many years. And this is just such a great opportunity for us to catch up and for me to find out the work that Peshawn's been doing. Peshawn, can you give the audience a background? Tell them a little bit about you and then we can go from there?
Sure. Hello. Maroe, Aka, Namana, Nana Anisa, Peshawn Bread. Hello, my name is Peshawn Bread. I'm a Comanche screenwriter and filmmaker. I studied out in San Francisco and I'm coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
It looks beautiful out there right now.
It is. It's just nice and toasty. It's perfect.
That's great. So I'd like to get started. If you can give us some background on so I had lived in Santa Fe for a while, and I know you and your family. I knew you growing up, but then when I moved away, I know you went to school. Can you give us some background on where you went to school and what you studied and how that informed what you're doing now?
Sure, definitely. I went to school at Academy of Art University in San Francisco, California. There I studied screenwriting and I will be receiving my BFA, but my graduation has been postponed due to COVID. So I'll be graduating in December and I'm very excited.
Congratulations.
About that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thank you. I've spent many years working towards my degree in screenwriting and also working as a cinematography assistant to the teacher as a professor as well. And I've been working on cinematography, lighting, and kind of working my way through different fields of film. I found myself really being attached to screenwriting, though. I think in high school, I used to do a lot of poetry. And at that time, I was sort of getting into film. I was working on short film projects out here in Santa Fe with other Native filmmakers and just helping out. And I really found myself loving being on set. I liked the intensity. I liked the rush. I liked just being near a camera. And I felt it was appropriate for me as a Native person and as a poet to tell stories through film. And I've always kind of had that love and just wanted to nurture it.
Well, that's what I feel like you have always been. Film is you. You have always been in film. I mean, what is the youngest that you remember where you had exposure to film or were part of a project?
Let's see. I think I was still in high school and I remember helping out a filmmaker named Brian Young on his short film called Rainbow Bird. And it was a green screen animation type. And I had been asked to assist with another filmmaker, Sydney Freeland. I remember that day she asked me, she was like, oh, would you be interested in helping with the short film? I said, yeah, that sounds great. And so I was on set and it was great to see Indigenous people working cameras and see them like actually on set and trying to tell a story and trying to do something together and collaborate.
Right.
It was after that experience, Sydney asked me if I would like to help her on her feature film, and it's just been unforgettable since then.
Which was Drunktown's Finest, right? And so you were assistant camera, and then you were in the film as well.
Yes, I had an acting role, and I was assistant to the director.
Assistant to the director.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have a ton of experience under your belt already. Can you tell me about how this Native Filmmakers Lab Fellowship came to be, and what the experience was like for you?
So I received the Native Filmmakers Lab through Sundance, their fellowship. I had applied for it. I think this was my third project I applied for. I had written a couple of other shorts and I was really hoping that I was going to be able to make them. One of them was about my mother growing up in Oklahoma under racism. That was my first short film that I submitted and made it to the top 4 in that selection process. And I was really proud of myself. I was excited. And so I came back again with another story and it was about it was a statement piece on missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Mm.
It would take place in a gas station, and the script was only 7 pages long, so I had the record for shortest script.
Mm.
And this past year, I had gone to Sundance um, to premiere Words from a Bear. I had done camera work on that, and it's about a Kiowa writer, Scott Momaday. So I was really excited to work on that project. And when I was there for the premiere, the Women's March was taking place, and I remember there was talks of feminism, and at the time, that was when the whole issue with Native people on the national Capitol steps was going
Mm.
on with
Mm-hmm.
the smirking Trump supporter. I was a little bit frustrated, and I had to go back to school. And so during that, I was like, okay, well, let me write something about this. I said, who do I want to stand up for me? And so I wrote about a Native dominatrix for Native dominatrix for hire who it's white supremacist, and I thought it was appropriate. And so I had finished that out on my plane ride. I submitted that to the filmmakers lab in May last year and made it to the top 4 again. Really excited. I worked on a mood board. I worked a on a storyboard, and I worked on a script that I like to workshop, like a scene from the script that I like to workshop. And once I sent that in, I was really nervous, and they said, "Oh, we have a question to ask you." And I was like, "Okay." They're going to say, "Thank you for applying." But they said, "How would you like to join us in Santa Fe for the Filmmakers Lab?"
Wow.
And I was like, "Whoa." I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "Wow."
That's
It's like, "All
so
right,
amazing.
cool." And so it's been a year fellowship. It's been a wonderful fellowship. I had the opportunity to go to Sundance through the Talent Forum to talk about my project and to talk about post production and possibly raise funds and get distribution. And so it's been such a helpful journey to be able to workshop my script, to have it from the beginning of what it was, which was paper, to have it completely into a manageable media now that I'm editing. It was just wonderful from
So,
pre-production to post.
so when you say workshop, you actually shot the whole film,
With the
or are
workshop
there
in May,
are
I
there
had
pieces?
oh, so workshopping, I had worked on a scene, and we had actors in Santa Fe that I was
Okay.
able to work with and kind of get the feel for how I wanted the scene to go, and also to prepare for a rewrite. And the scene that I had chosen in my film is a scene, it was a really emotional scene between my main character, who plays Mistress Red, and she is talking about her history as a Native woman and what it means to her to be a dominatrix. And after workshopping that scene and after having actresses and working with them together, it was just eye opening for me. So I was able to rewrite a new script.
Mm,
And after that, I was able to shoot. We finished shooting in October.
I see.
Mhm.
So I read something really interesting that you said during the workshop, that about how you shifted your approach to working with actors. That you worked with a first-time actor for the workshop,
Yeah.
and um, I'm trying to remember. You said something very profound about how it's not about um, telling the actor something to this effect, and then you
Mhm.
can correct me, but not about telling the actor what to do, but to really um, you say it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do.
I think you went into directing thinking it was one way, where you were supposed to say, well, this
Mhm.
is how I want to see it. Whereas when you started working with the actor, it shifted for you, and you understood there were many more layers to trying to pull that performance out of the actor.
I think what it was for me in that moment is I kind of related it back to BDSM, which is something I'm comfortable in, and
Okay.
which is a safe and open space for people who are comfortable in BDSM. So I kind of created a safe space for her since she was feeling really emotional and she had a personal experience that related to it. I
Okay.
thought she related herself and applied herself to the script in ways that were so deep,
Mm,
and she was crying, and in between takes I would have to check on her and
mm.
comfort and hold her and say, "Are you all right? It's no, it's okay, we can take 10. Are you comfortable in the room? What's going on?" I feel like with acting, I've definitely applied BDSM in the way of creating safe spaces for people who are making themselves vulnerable to the camera and vulnerable to the piece that they're performing.
Can we back up a little, and can you give us more of a summary of the actual film so that we can have some context for um, um, why your actor was connected in such a deep way? And so we know the film is about a Native American dominatrix, but how can you give us a fuller summary of the film?
Sure. So, The Daily Life of Mistress Red is about a native dominatrix for hire who is being interviewed for a indigenous blog. And the indigenous blogger is we have a character named Taylor, and then we have Mistress Red. So Taylor is this indigenous blogger who wants to fight for indigenous women's rights, and she's not used to. She's very modest, and she's very closed off in sexuality. She's not really comfortable with it. So coming across Mistress Red, it's this whole flip side of a story. She's expecting to interview a native fashion icon, but she's introduced to Mistress Red wearing leather and just latex and with a whip in hand. And so throughout this whole experience, she goes through the day in life of, at first she has interviews with her cousin, with Mistress Red's cousin, with a shop owner because they run a native fashion shop. And so she has an intern and she has her partner in an interview as well. And throughout this daily experience, it's going from, here's who I am, I'm a dominatrix, but here's why I'm a dominatrix. And so the interviews are bits and pieces of humor interweaved through, from native humor to awkward sexual humor to eventually the moment that we're talking about, which is where Mistress Red reveals herself. And she reveals herself as to why she's a dominatrix, which is, it's a way of healing from traumas. It's a way from healing from past traumas as an indigenous woman, and from really difficult situations such as rape, and what it's like to know that there are other Native women who experience the same thing. And this is why she's a dominatrix. So the film ends on a heavy note, but it's also really important that we talk about that we talk about sexuality. But the film also ends on a hilarious note because we see her with a client, with a white supremacist client who's wearing a Make America Great hat. And we see our other character, Taylor, who's recording the whole episode, essentially. It's recording the whole short through her eyes. It's a mockumentary, so she's recording it, and then we kind of see her growth as well as a person, going from, I don't understand why you're like this. You're a Native woman, you shouldn't be like this, to it's okay that you handle things differently. It's okay that you have a sexuality, which I think is important. Because a lot of Native women, we're in a situation right now, we're in such a political crisis with our bodies that we should have a right to own our bodies and to love ourselves and to have sexuality. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Do you feel like working on this film and sharing it with others, that people have been receptive and it's helped with yeah, how have people been? Have they been receptive? Have you encountered any difficulty? And you know, just seeing how vulnerable you get, just talking about your film, and you have to present it over and over again in different places and different types of meetings and different types of audiences. How has it been, and how do you put up boundaries and protect yourself, and at the same time remain vulnerable so that you can be honest and share what your film is really about?
I've had a lot of fun talking about this film and promoting it and sharing it as well, and telling other Native people. And I've, for one, been posting a lot of process on social media, and to have people reach out to me when I got the fellowship, which was last year from this month actually. And every time I say the log line, people just laugh. People laugh and they're like, "Oh, I'm excited for this mockumentary. This is going to be great." I'm like, "That's good," but it's also got all these different layers. And presenting this at Sundance, I think, was something that really helped my confidence in it. And being around other Indigenous people as well has helped me with this has helped me with this experience, and seeing how they take it and say, finally, yes, this is what we need to do. We need more Native dominatrixes. I'm like, there's a lot out there, believe it or not. But the overall support for this film has been absolutely amazing. I had
Great.
all my BDSM props for the film. We had 50 pounds of BDSM gear in airport luggage, and it was all donated. It was
Hmm.
all donated for the film,
Wow.
and that was through someone who reached out to me, one of my close friends now, Rob Patel in the Bay Area. He saw my post and we met up for coffee because he was like, "You're an Indigenous person too, and you're also into sexuality and kink, and that's something I want to connect to." I was like, "Cool." So we met up for coffee, and next thing you know, we're making a grocery list of all the props we need, from whips
Everything
to
you
ball
need.
gags
That's
to
fantastic.
harnesses. But the overall, I have gotten some bad responses to this film, but I think it's because people are a little confused or they're not
Hmm.
completely understanding what it is that I'm trying to say. But I always make sure to take my time and let people know that this isn't the way of healing. This isn't how everyone has to heal. This isn't something that everyone has to take into their hands, but
Right.
it's just my story. This is
Right.
something that I've done and many others have done. And I think it's time that we reclaim our bodies.
You're incredibly brave. When we come back, I'd really like to talk more about um, um, what you're saying about the negative responses and just explore how you're dealing
Mhm.
with it, and then we'll move into some other fun subjects. This is Rise and Thrive with Tailinh Agoyo on Usula Media.
I'll be over soon. Can I look at you without a care in the world? And that sad look that you bear when you think there's no one there.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Mama smiling when you say you're mad. Just let me pull you close and make you sad. Let's just keep on playing along. And it's
Hi, I'm Tailinh Agoyo, and we're back on Rise and Thrive on Usula Media. We're here with Peshawn Bread, who is a Comanche poet and filmmaker. Peshawn, when we left before, we were talking about some negative experiences that you've had presenting this film. And I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I would like to explore it because I think as a Native woman filmmaker, as a Native woman in general, we have to go through the world in a certain type of way. And we have to
Mhm.
protect ourselves, but we also have to make a stand for ourselves. So I just want to know I know you're a strong person. You're incredibly smart and brilliant and talented. And so,
Thank you.
um, yeah, and you always have this very incredible grace and strength and balance with who you are. Um, how do you navigate this though? And you have such a dynamic
Mhm.
project that you're trying to introduce to the world, and on so many levels, I think it's got to be confusing to a lot of people
Mhm.
who, in the Native communities, but more so outside of Native communities. So how do you walk that line?
I think for me, one of the most interesting points that I've ever had to navigate through, and one of the interesting critiques was why white supremacists. So, and I was like,
Huh.
okay, I said that's interesting. And
Yeah.
they said, why does she have to be angry? Are all Native women angry? And I took that and I thought to myself, I was like, no, we never get to be angry. We are never allowed emotions. As Native
Mm-hmm.
women, we always have to walk through things and be graceful and be
Mm-hmm.
composed, because if one Native woman decides to say something, suddenly every Native woman is considered a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Every Native woman is either angry or either upset or either just, it's so strange to
Because
play into this
we're
stereotype.
not just always thinking about ourselves. We have to consider everybody that it affects around
Hmm.
us, and that's
Yeah.
something that we're constantly doing.
Hmm. And I think with this film, I did write it when I was angry, because I'm still angry, honestly. I'm still angry that Native women are being abused. I'm so angry that we're not allowed to love ourselves. We're not allowed to be comfortable in sexuality. We're not allowed to wear harnesses. We're not allowed to do anything different. And so I think with this film, I take the negative comments and sometimes I'll write them down in a journal, and I'll write them in really pretty cursive. So when I look at them, they look great.
Mm-hmm.
But when I read them, sometimes they give me a little more motivation than it should to complete the film and to make sure that I have extra scenes of my white supremacists being whipped.
There you go.
I'm just like, I'm going to put this out here for you. I am so sorry. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sorry, but
Sorry, not
um,
sorry.
sorry, not sorry, but to my grandparents, I'm sorry. But and that was something else too. Someone sent me an Instagram message one time. It was like before I went to Sundance. It said, "How do you feel disgracing Native people? How do you feel pushing all the efforts of your grandparents
A
behind
native
and all
person
of our?"
said that to you?
Yes, yeah, and they said, "How do you feel upsetting our ancestors?" And I just
Oh,
thought
how
about it, and
awful.
I thought about it. I was like, well, I hate to tell you this, but our ancestors loved themselves. They loved themselves, they loved us, they loved the earth, they loved everything. And sadly, that has changed throughout the years, where we were shamed from our bodies, shamed from our sexuality, shamed from just everyday life. So, I thought to myself, I said, how does it feel to love something that wasn't ours originally, which was hate? How can you
Mm-hmm.
hate another Native person for taking another step in the world?
Good for you.
And it's just, it's so difficult sometimes, but honestly, I just think about all of my friends and all of the Native people I met throughout the years and throughout this whole film, like all the friends I've made through this film, and how it helps them and how they kind of look up to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gets me through, honestly. And also, I think my own personal experiences. I've had a lot of strange experiences as a Native person living in the city and just growing up and blooming into my own person through sexuality. I went from Oklahoma, living in Oklahoma, to Santa Fe, where it was super conservative. So I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
able to express myself as a teenager as much as I wanted to. It was when I went out to California and went to San Francisco and found myself there and just accepted myself for what I am. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
really inspires me now.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. It's incredible to see you grow into this amazing person, and
Thank you.
to see all this phenomenal work that you're putting out into the world, and it's important, and I'm really excited to talk more about it. So can you share some about the filming process and
Mhm.
where you are now? You said you're in post-production.
Mhm.
um, how is it going, and how, and then after you do that, talk about how, what your needs are for the film. Like, what are you looking for? Are you still looking for funding? Just share all of it with us.
Okay, here we go.
This is the best part.
Ooh, filming. Filming was really interesting. We had a budget of 20 grand through Sundance, and
That's
we
great.
essentially, it was so it was so nice to know who was supportive of this idea, because we had so many people volunteer on set, and
So
that was
cool.
something I'm completely thankful and just forever going to remember, is that we had many volunteers. We had a camera team from Oklahoma, Sunrise Tipicani, who teaches at OU. He came through and worked camera for us. We had people flying in from different places just to be on set. Filming was wonderful because we had rented out a complete house on Airbnb in Santa Fe. Since my story begins with someone walking up to the door and kind of going through the house, and we had built a BDSM room, which was just wonderful. We had roses sent in, and we had placed paintings and art from Native artists, and that was something I've wanted to contribute because I grew up in the Native art
Yes.
community, and that's like such a big part of my life. So I thought I would give back by allowing artists to show their work. And I had message a couple of my favorite artists. I had received a BDSM Native Betty Page painting from Brett Leonard.
Amazing.
It was the best thing ever. We stuck it right in the middle of the
Incredible.
room. We stuck it right in the middle of the room, and we also had a
So
photo from
good.
Cara Romero. She had donated a huge piece, so we stuck it right in the living room, and everywhere you would look on camera, you would see Native art. And that was something that, it was a small detail that I wanted, but
Yes.
also shades of red.
It's so great.
We had decorated the whole closet. We had filled it with clothing, with BDSM clothing, with toys, whips, floggers, all of it, and also Native fashion as well. Because my main character, Mistress Red, she is a Native fashion icon, and we had outfits from Jamie Okuma, from
Amazing.
Bethany Yellowtail, and I just really wanted to make sure that we had as much Native art and as much support in this film.
That's incredible.
We had spent a whole weekend in the house shooting, so we had shot for 2 days back to back. My actress Jennifer Rader, she's absolutely amazing, and we had, since I was going back and forth between San Francisco and Santa Fe because I was still in school, we had done an online casting call, and our casting call was through social media, through another casting call website, because I had worked with a Mid Thunder casting agency, and
They're fantastic.
they're wonderful. And I had worked with Ellen Humphreys, and she was just so hands-on. We sat in a cafe, we talked about like the character descriptions for every bit of all the characters, and she found accurate people that fit the descriptions. Like I would say, this person looks like they would never steal a candy bar. And she'd say, okay. And she would find
And then
these.
she find
really,
them.
she would find
That's
them. And I was like,
incredible.
how did you do that? But my lead actress, Jennifer Rader, she submitted a video online, and I had watched it over and over and over. And I was like, I think this is Mistress Red. I was like, I think this is her. I need to see her in person. So I flew back to Santa Fe for another casting call for callbacks, and she drove 8 hours from Oklahoma.
Wow.
Just for her casting callback, and she showed up wearing tall heels, black leather pants, black shirt, and I had a whip and I had a harness with me, and I said, are you comfortable with wearing these? Can we see your like inner Mistress Red? Boy, she scared me. She was amazing. She was so amazing. She scared me. I was like,
She scared you.
She scared me.
Like, aren't you prepared for anything?
I was like, I thought I was prepared for this. I was like, I thought I'd be totally okay with this. I was like, I am so terrified. So she drove in from Oklahoma to work with us on set, and she was just absolutely amazing. She brought it the whole time. She was just so down and hands-on. We had her in a long red robe, and we had a couple of scenes where it was a little intense for her because she wasn't comfortable with BDSM just yet. She was still we were both talking to each other about it, and we were very communicative on set. Meanwhile, my vlogger character, the actress who played Taylor Tira, she was into BDSM and she was comfortable with it. So I had like this exact
interesting
opposite.
Right.
And I was on set and I was like, how am I going to balance this? I said, how am I going to make sure that we make her seem like she doesn't know and make her seem like she knows everything? And so we started going through the closet together. And I said, do you know what this is? And she said, no, what are those? I was like, they're nipple clamps. So she said, what are those for? I said, what do you think they're for? And we kind of just went through piece by piece, and I was trying to explain everything to her. And I was like, this is
so she would have more context.
Yeah, so she would have more context. And there's a scene where they're going through the closet, and they're both exchanging opinions about certain pieces. And Jennifer, my lead actress, took everything I said word by word and made it her own. And I thought that was really sweet because she was showing the vlogger character, Taylor. She said, "Oh, what is this?" She's like,
Okay.
"This is a whip. Wouldn't you want to know?" And it's like,
Right.
"Oh, wow. Okay."
Okay.
So I felt like filming was something I was definitely prepared for. Something I felt it's so surreal the first day of set to see everyone running around getting things
Yeah.
ready for something that you wrote. It's so
Right.
unreal. It's like, oh my
It's
goodness.
gotta be amazing. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it really was. And so it was just magical to see everyone
Hmm.
get together and everyone wanting to help out and make sure that we had everything in place and, you know, hitting the slate the first time and calling out
Hmm.
everything on the slate is just this made me want to cry. I was so
I can
honored.
only
I was like, oh my
imagine.
goodness.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think definitely filming it. I feel like as a filmmaker, I might be prepared for everything that I need in the future. I feel like I'm not going to be surprised on set anymore because I literally had whips. I had a whipping scene as my first film. I had very high emotional intelligence through this
Hmm.
film and working with emotions. And,
Right.
I feel like nothing can scare me now.
Right. I understand because there's a vulnerability that you
Mhm,
had with the other actors
mhm,
and the other people on set. There had to have been a huge level of trust with everybody.
mhm,
And as a director and the writer of the film,
mhm,
um, coming in, I think you must have had to bring in this kind of energy and like this is how it's going to work, and
mhm.
whoever can't work that way is not a good fit for your set, right? And
Yeah.
so I think that's a beautiful start, and I think you're right because that's so much of filmmaking. That's so much of
Mhm,
being on a film crew is like earning this
mhm,
kind of trust of everybody, and that everybody, because everybody leans on everybody in some
mhm.
specific way, and it's like a puzzle. And
Yeah.
um, so you're right. I believe that you
Mhm.
have that foundation already. It's
Thank you.
it's all easy from here, no problem.
I know.
I'm still just amazed by you talking about the art that you have in the room, and you focused on every detail.
Mhm,
Um, and you're saying there were small things, but that's so huge because those are things that we don't normally see when we watch film and television. We're not
mhm,
seeing representation of our artists and our
mhm,
fashion designers, and
mhm,
the work is phenomenal. There's so much good work,
mhm.
and
Yes,
the fact
there is.
it's so much, and just bringing it onto your film set and
Mhm,
and elevating it to that level is really exciting.
mhm.
I can't wait to see it. I just can't wait. I was gonna write you and say, can I see a clip? I just really am I am so excited. Um, so when you wrapped production, so you were there a week and you wrapped
Mhm.
production, um, then you went back to school, and then when did you start working on post? Was it right away or was it a while after?
I think it was a week after because I needed some time to kind of resettle and figure out what I wanted to see rather than, oh, that was my favorite moment on set or I really
Mm.
liked this. So
Ah.
um, I had started to put everything together and my script is actually 17 pages long and the first cut was 20. Currently, we're at 16. I'm trying to cut it down to 10 minutes.
Hmm.
So it's a bit of a challenge at the moment. And we're currently through post production. But since the whole pandemic and COVID has happened,
Yeah.
we're a little behind on editing, but we're hoping to have editing and have a cut done to submit to Sundance this year. We're
And that's
looking,
in the fall, the submissions?
yes, it's in the fall. It's in the, I think midsummer to fall is when submissions are for Sundance. So I'm currently looking for grants and some post production funds.
And is there a place where people can donate online? Do you have a website, or is it on your social media? Where can people find you?
Yes, you can go on our website, redambitionproductions.com. We'll be launching a Kickstarter soon. Our
Oh,
Kickstarter date,
great.
yeah, our Kickstarter date was pushed back I had originally wanted to post in March, but that's when everything happened, and I felt like it was a little out of place to
Right.
ask for funds for a film when everyone has a family to take care of, and most importantly
Right.
themselves. So I
Right.
just wanted to hold off on that and wait a little.
So that will be coming soon.
Yes, that'll be coming very soon.
Okay, great. We're going to take a break. And when we come back to Rise and Thrive, we'll talk more about the daily life of Mistress Red with Peshawn Bread. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us on Usula Media.
Over the phone is how you told me you still love me, and I'm still kicking myself. But what I said to you, I told you I'll be over soon, I'll be over soon. Can I...
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.
And it's alright with me. It's alright with me. It's alright with me. Just roll me around in your head. Just one more time.
And we're back. This is Tailinh Agoyo with Peshawn Bread on Rise and Thrive, Indigenous Arts, Culture, and Joyful Acts of Resistance on Usula Media. Peshawn, share with us more about, you said you're getting ready to hopefully submit to Sundance this fall or summer fall. And then where do you see the film going from there? First of all, we want it to be in Sundance, but after that, once it's at Sundance, then what is your biggest dreams about this film, and then where do you see yourself going?
My biggest dreams about this film would
Yeah,
be...
let's lay it out there. Come on, let's ask for it.
Okay, I have an agenda. So
Good for you. You need it.
Thank you. I would like to do a film festival tour. I'd like to show it in Native communities and Native film festivals as well as taking it international to Berlinale. That would be my dream, honestly, and just showing it for a year while working on a series for this. I actually wrote this as a pilot kind of pitching short,
Okay.
as like a character pitching short, because I really liked the character I had developed, Mistress Red, and I wanted to kind of like elaborate on her some more. I wanted to do either a web series or a TV series about this native dominatrix and how she communicates and goes through the world as a native woman. And that was something I was really hoping to expand on. So if I can be safe about this, I would say this is only a beginning. I would say this
That's
short is
wonderful.
only a beginning to
Yeah.
a possible feature or to a possible TV series or a web series. I definitely want to elaborate more on this and dive into the other worlds and depths of being an Indigenous person in today's world, honestly. I would say after this short film, I have plans to also write a feature more about Indigenous women and to possibly pitch some other crazy ideas that I have.
So will they be focused on sexuality as well?
I think there'll be hints of sexuality throughout my other pieces. That's something I'm always going to be talking about and something I'm always going to try to make sure we're comfortable with, because I feel that it's something we're not comfortable with. But I
Yeah.
feel that my other pieces might go for, this is a comedy, it might go to a drama, or it might go to supernatural. I mean, I've been thinking of a Native American vampire lately. How come that's not a thing? So I think I have just a range of many different places I want to go from here.
Can you talk about, during the break, we were talking about sexuality. I was wondering if you were thinking, when you do premiere this film and you bring it to different places internationally, do you think there'll be an educational component? Just because when we touched upon, there's a lot of people who have a lot of ignorance about it, or a lot of people who have some discomfort themselves. Do you feel like it's your responsibility to bring some education, or is that not it? Is the film the education in and of itself, and so you speaking on a panel would be your way to answer questions or diffuse any kind of judgment that people have? Or do you want to actually develop more of a education is not quite the right word, but do you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I feel with this film, I originally wrote it just from experience, and just from my personal experience. I was a dominatrix at a point as well, and also just being a Native woman and having the issues like always surround me. I honestly didn't intend on this film being educational. I thought it would be humorous, and that's the direction I'm still going with it, is
Okay.
mockumentary and comedy.
Right.
So
Right.
I feel that comedy in its own way is educational, and in its own way it's healing for all of us. I feel that every time I get to talk about this film, someone always leaves with extra information about BDSM, about sexuality, about Native people, Native women, and it always ends up being educational for people.
Right. I see what you're saying.
And even for Native people as well, it's always
Yeah.
like, it's always, what are you trying to say with this?
Uh-huh.
What do you mean? And I'm just like, oh, it sucks. Everyone has it. But I'm just like, we are all here today.
Yes, we're here.
I was like, we are here. And it's also just a piece of resistance as well. And that's something I wanted to really have this film be about. I wanted it to be about reclaiming and just us being us.
Yeah, a lot of times we say, like, I mean, it's in the title of my show about resistance, just being here or living or existing. And for me, I always think about being joyful as being very resistant. So I appreciate that idea. Well, I'm really excited to hear. I was so excited to hear about your new ideas. But I feel like there's so many steps for you that are coming up, and so much that's going to happen in the near future. It is an interesting time that we're in now. We're all in quarantine. Travel has stopped. How has that affected or actually pushed your work in a different direction that you had thought?
I think with the film or with my personal work, like
either.
I feel that in the beginning of all this, it was a panic. It was something that I'm scared, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. So naturally, when you're panicked, you're not creative. And it's okay to not be creative. You don't have to write a novel during a national pandemic, or a global pandemic, honestly. It's okay to take time to yourself and just reattach yourself through all this. And that's something that like I had to kind of cope with. But now that it's starting to become a normalized thing, now that we're wearing masks when we go out to the grocery store or to the drive-through, I feel that I'm able to release my creativity a little more, and that I'm able to communicate ideas back and forth with my producer about things. And this pandemic has stopped travel for me, so it's been a little hard to do editing. I'm trying to do editing myself, and I'm not really well versed in editing. I'm pretty horrible with computers, honestly, but I feel that this has kind of hindered my editing process.
Is it forcing you to learn about editing more than you would have before? Do you think that on the other side of this, you'll be like, wow, that was challenging, but I'm editor. I won an Oscar for editing.
I don't think I'll be winning any Oscars.
Accepting your award, you'll be like, I just remember during the pandemic. Thank you to the pandemic.
It took me a whole pandemic just to learn. I feel
No,
that
so no.
no, I feel like I'm really bad with the keys. I'm trying to figure out like what means what. I mean,
Oh, okay. All the
I've
shortcuts
learned
and stuff.
yeah, all the shortcuts. I've learned editing, but it was on a different program. So I'm using
Mm,
Premiere right now, and I'm
mhm.
just like, what does that mean? I'm just trying to go through everything, but I don't think I'll be winning any Oscars for editing. I think
You never know.
I will let you know. You will have the first interview when I do.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, I think you're right. It's really a time to reset, and it is now just becoming very normal. So like, okay, how do we, this is our life now. So how does it look?
Yeah.
And um, I think it's interesting because you obviously with your film you had like a very rigid schedule. This is when we're going to shoot. This is when we're in post. This is when we apply.
Yeah.
And then it's like it all just kind of erupts and you have to reset.
Mhm.
Does it? Do you? I mean, obviously there had to have been some level of disappointment. I mean, aside from the worry and everything, but do you feel now that um, like you're back on, even though everything's not normal or the way it used to be, which it never will be again, do you think that
Yeah.
you are back on track and that you can achieve the the milestones that you had planned?
I think my journey as a filmmaker and my journey with this film will be different than what I expected. Um, some film festivals are talking about being virtual now,
Hmm.
and that really changes up the kind of game from going what I'm used to for film festivals,
Right,
going venue
just
to venue to venue,
traveling.
just
Right,
traveling, going
and
everywhere,
meeting people. Yeah.
and meeting people. I think sometimes I think about it and I'm just like, this isn't ideally how I wanted it to be. But then I really start to look into myself and think about this film, and I say, this is exactly how I want it to be. I
Ah,
would want people to see it. I would want it to be accessible to people.
right.
I don't want Native people to have to pay so much money to go somewhere and to
Right.
watch it. I'd rather it just
Right.
be virtual and for everyone to be able to watch and laugh at. That's something that I was thinking about, but it's definitely changed things a bit. But I think
Yeah,
overall,
but
just the idea that we're so giving now as people, as artists, as everything, I think it's
yeah.
definitely going to be a change for good.
I agree with you on that. And I think you're right. I think the accessibility is a huge positive thing that's come out of this because now you will be able to um, premiere it everywhere
Hmm.
and in small rural communities, people who wouldn't necessarily have access to get out and
Hmm.
yeah, and then you can be on panels still online. I mean, all of it can
Yeah.
translate online. I guess you're just missing the opportunity to travel, but
Yeah.
eventually we'll get back to that.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm really excited about that. You said this might be a web series or a feature. I think
Yeah.
I think both ideas are brilliant, and I'm really
Thank you.
excited to see them. Can you again tell us where we can find you and where what you're looking for? Do you need monetary donations? Like, what would help you right now?
We would really, I think right now we really need post-production funds. We really need donations as well as just working on our Kickstarter. That would help with editing so much right now and help with putting things together, doing sound, doing coloring, everything that we need that's outside of our editing control. So I think that would be super helpful. You can find us on Instagram under Mistress Red Film. Our website is redambitionproductions.com, or you can find me on Instagram, which is Real P Bread, and that's Real REAL P and then Bread BREAD.
Are we? Do you have on your Instagram, or are we going to see artists? I mean, I'm sorry, not artists, but actor. But actually, now that I said that,
Oh,
actor interviews. I think it would be really interesting to see who's behind the scenes of
mhm,
your project and have them talk about it and what are your plans for doing all that
mhm.
type of uh, marketing and outreach.
Yeah, I mean, now that we're in quarantine and we're in COVID, it's the perfect time
Yeah,
for social media, and it's the perfect time
right.
to really utilize the live feature. So I'm thinking of going live on the Mistress Red page with some of the actors who are available, and having a Q&A session, or having a like a little happy hour hangout where we answer your questions and just kind of go off of that, and
I think that's a
more
great
about the
idea.
actors, post more about the film. Recently, I think my last post on Mistress Red was it was a whip and some latex clothing, and I said, stay safe, stay home, and stay kinky.
That's awesome. Are you very active on social media, or do you find that you're really focused on, do you feel like you have to wear a lot of hats, and how do you balance all of them between,
Definitely.
you have a huge project, but then you want to get it out in the world. So how are you balancing it?
I feel like I wear a lot of different hats. I feel that having so many social media accounts is what drives me crazy. I was sitting here with my partner.
I'm right there with you. Yeah.
I was sitting here with my partner last night. We were like, oh my gosh, I gotta post that. And he was like, that's right. And so I went on my personal account, which is or my bigger account, which is Real Pea Bread, and I was doing that on Instagram, and I was like, oh my god, I was like, this is about Mistress Red. I need to post it on the film account.
Right.
So I did that, and I was like, but I also need to post to Facebook. This is ridiculous. So we were just, I was like, how does this sound? How does that sound? And so we were just going through all of them. And I feel that as the screenwriter and director of this project, I feel that I have a lot of pressure and a lot of different hats throughout this whole thing. And also as the person on experience with the whole BDSM thing as well, I feel that I had to wear a lot of different hats on set for that. And just in general, when I talk about this film, because people want to talk to me as a director, and they want to talk to me for the future of this film, but they also have questions. What is it like to be a Native woman? And why did you write about a dominatrix? Are you a dominatrix? Is that personal? And I'm just like, I was like, well, it's out there, so everything's not personal now. When you put stories out there, you have to be okay with showing yourself, because it's a reflection of you. It's a bit of you. Every story that I try to write, I always make sure that there's a bit of me that just remains close to heart, so I'm able to keep going with this story and just keep going with it. And so to be so vulnerable and just to talk about it all the time and have all the experiences, I feel like I'm definitely wearing so many hats right now.
Right. So how do you find that you protect yourself?
I find myself protecting myself, I think I would have to say when I go home, when I'm by myself, and after it was amazing for the talent forum. I had meeting after meeting after meeting with production companies, with studios, with owners and CEOs of certain companies like Universal, and telling the story and putting myself out there. I think watching their expressions while I tell this was very scary to me. I was like, are they going to laugh, or are they going to say, well, what's so bad about white supremacists? Because I've had that happen before. And or they say, what's so bad about Trump? I'm like, there's nothing bad about him. And I'm just like kind of waiting to waiting, and I'm just like, I'm like, I don't know. Could it be all of the racist things he said? Could it be all the sexism? Could it be there's a plethora, but I want to be respectful.
But this is not what this meeting. Yeah, let's move on.
No, it's not. That's not what it's about.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like,
so they're calling out one thing, and they're redirecting your conversation, and you're like, that's not. Let's focus.
I know. Yeah, and it always just gets turned in a different direction. So I feel like how I protect myself is just by either having a minute alone and thinking about who this film is for. I think that's how I'm able to protect myself in meetings as well, because they want to get really personal and they want to ask me a bunch of questions. Like, I speak for all Native people, but it's not true. I only speak for myself as a Native person.
Right.
And I think that's something that we need to think about when we pursue media and when we pursue art, is that one person doesn't speak for all of us.
Yes.
But we should all support that person, because at least they're speaking. At least they're speaking from our culture, and they're speaking from an experience that we all have some relation to. So I think about it So I think
Yeah.
about my mom, I think about myself, I think about Indigenous women all the time. I think about Indigenous peoples, and I think about the times that we were never able to have our sexuality and have the
Mhm.
things that we cherish now, which is our own identities. That's how I protect myself.
Peshawn, um, thank you so much for being on this show with me. I'm just, you're amazing. And I'm so excited to see the film and to see all of your work going forward.
Mhm.
Um, this has just been a wonderful conversation, and you've brought up so many powerful points. I can't wait to listen to it again because you really are, you're just a phenomenal person, and you're doing so much good work, putting so much good work out in the world. And I really appreciate you and all the work that you do. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It was an honor to speak with you today.